There's so much to talk about. I'm just so like I can't pretend to be like all happy today because it feels heavy, you know.
It's so freaking heavy. Yes, you're right.
Anyway, but I'm happy to see you. Cheers.
I'm happy. Cheers. I'm not
Cheers.
doing tea today. I've got water.
Okay, okay.
I did some tea this morning though.
And you're coming to us from
I am in lovely California.
down south, right?
Southern California, yes, sir. I am I will talk about like why I'm here, but yes, but I'm in Southern California. That's
Okay.
part of our discussion, so we'll get to that. But yeah, so I'm on the ocean, I'm listening to the waves. It's kind of cool. Now I'm chatting with you.
I know, right? I know, like this is like chatting with you and talking to my beloved and meditating and being in nature and journaling. That's how I'm dealing with all the crazy stuff in the media. I mean, like it's already crazy with COVID and all that.
Right.
And then this week's news, you know,
Yeah.
I just really have no words. From the Christian Cooper and the Central Park Karen incident to the George Floyd in
You can't
Minneapolis.
even bird watch while black. Yeah. And how
I
many
know, right?
actually do that, right? Yeah, and I saw him on The View this morning, he and his sister, and I thought the way he handled that was very well. I mean, I probably would be like, I don't know that I'd be as forgiving as he was, but I thought he was very graceful. And he did make some valid points. I mean, from a spiritual standpoint, I definitely agree with him. But from an emotional standpoint, I'd be like, she deserves everything she gets and more. But really, if you're really going to look at the spiritual aspect, I thought when he was talking about, she definitely troped in racism. She definitely made a very dumb and dangerous call.
Dangerous.
But should her whole life be judged by those few moments? So I was like, and I think, all of us have moments where we revert to something and do something stupid. Unfortunately, that her level of stupidity could have resulted in someone being actually murdered.
Murdered or going into jail. You know how many black people, especially black men nowadays, go to, or not even nowadays, in our history, have gone to jail because somebody called the police and just sometimes made things up, right, about being attacked or being threatened, and they were wrongly accused, and they're rotting in jail, or their lives are ruined. Right. So we're talking about this Central Park Karen incident, and it's interesting that they both have the same last name.
Same last name, right?
Yeah,
Cooper.
right, with Christian Cooper. And okay, so after this whole incident, if you guys don't know about this incident, y'all gotta Google just Central Park Karen and you'll see it. But the craziness of it all was that when I saw the incident, I was just like, my blood was boiling so much. And in talking about what's right, what's wrong, what we think is right, I want to also focus today on like, how are we dealing with all this news? Like, I don't know how you're dealing with it. I just mentioned a few ways that I was dealing with it, but I'm not going to lie and say that I'm okay, because I'm really feeling shaken up about it. And it's the whole, like the Ahmaud Aubrey thing from a couple of weeks ago in your hometown, right? Which is in Georgia.
In Georgia, it's a home state, yes.
Yeah, home state. Home state, 25-year-old guy jogging, shot and killed by two white guys. I mean, when is it gonna stop? And
then just yesterday, you've got this gentleman in Floyd in Minneapolis,
George Floyd.
Basically murdered by 4 policemen. I don't know what else to say. And they still
video.
Yeah,
I couldn't see the video. Yeah, I couldn't watch it. I don't know if you watched it. Did you watch it?
I did, and it's very traumatic. But it's like I force myself to watch it, because it's like I have to remind myself, yes, these things are constantly happening. They've always been happening. Unfortunately, now we're witnessing them happening. But for me to be able to stay engaged and infuriated, and by infuriated, I don't just mean necessarily just to lash out in anger, but to use that anger constructively, to be reminded that we have a deep-seated problem in this country. And what can I do to stay alive, one, and two, to help move that needle
Forward.
forward.
Yeah. And
So
now
yeah,
it's being
I do watch
reported,
myself.
you know,
Hmm?
that's the thing. Thank God for this thing.
Yeah, I mean, because this stuff has been going on
Yeah.
forever,
Now it's just
which is
reported.
why and plus, the president, is not necessarily helping. I mean, he did do something and say that he's initiated an investigation, but I'm just talking about his general rhetoric. Even though he may or may not intend for it to be a dog whistle, it is perceived that way oftentimes. And so all of this stuff has just been bubbling up over the past couple of years to the surface. And for me, I believe that is kind of a good thing in the sense that you really can see people for who they are. Because once that's all filtered out, and whatever this country is going to be when this is done, because it's not going to be the same. Because it's like the Wizard of Oz. America's been this big, like, magical place, and then Trump comes in the office. We put him in office, and he just rips that illusion away
Yeah.
and let you see.
That's
No,
actually a good way to see it. Yeah.
he said, no, this is who we really are. And so now it's like, okay, the whole world, the facade of America has been blown for the whole world now.
Yeah.
And I think it's taking us the longest to deal with it because we've been so conditioned and so firmly rooted in the romance of it all. So these things happening on social media, I'm glad that they're out there because otherwise these people would not have a voice. It was 3 months before they arrested the guys who murdered Aubrey. So if that video didn't exist, then they would still just be out at the club playing tennis or whatever they do. So yeah, it is traumatic. And in dealing with that trauma, that's part of the reason that I'm here. I came to California um, I'm up here in Santa Barbara, which is just a little north of LA. And for me to cope, I've kind of isolated myself in a very nice hotel, but I've isolated myself in a hotel, and I have been able to just listen to the waves crashing right not too far from me, have my tea, really just meditate, journal for me, and just kind of reflect and try to do my best to remain spiritually centered in the midst of all this. Because let me tell you, my emotions go back. And when I'm scrolling through the phone, the more I see something, the more I'm like ready to kick
The
somebody's ass.
vitriol. Yeah.
So, so it's like, how do you ingest that in pieces where you can get updated information and you can still remain engaged, but not just where it's just
Consuming you.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's been my delicate balance, but I've been able to find this little sanctuary on the coast where I can just sit and hear the waves, like I say, because for me, the water is very soothing, and maybe get some sunlight. Looks like the sun might be trying to break through today, but it's warm.
Yeah.
And so dealing with that trauma so I can process it so that I can deal with it in a realistic way or a health or a constructive way. I won't say necessarily healthy, but a constructive way for me. And so that's why I'm here and why I've chosen. That's how I've been dealing with this particular this onslaught of trauma.
Yeah, and I think aside from all the COVID stuff in the news, and that's why I don't watch a lot of news. I just get my updates from my trusted sources at the end of the day. But that's already stressful enough. And then you put on top of that all this like racial tensions, and with the Asian American community, there's been a pandemic and an outbreak of anti-Asian sentiment and attacks. And what was interesting that I saw, at least for me, for the first time yesterday, was that the Asian community and the Asian American community and the African American community here in America kind of came together, and the Asians were like, "This is not right. What happened to Floyd?" And no matter what ethnicity you are, or whatever minority group you are, whatever gender, like whether you're male or female, like if you are in this minority group, as in female, POC, person of color,
anything besides a rich white male in power, everybody else sucks.
Yeah, then we're all in this together. So if something happens to a woman and you're a person of color, or you're just any other minority group, and either you don't speak up or you don't speak out about it, then it's almost, I don't, the condone is a harsh word to use, but it's almost like, oh, that's okay.
You're
It's,
complicit.
yeah.
It is. You may as well condone it.
As a university instructor in the past, I have brought up to kids that say, oh, that's gay. And while they didn't mean, because words have power, right? So when
Right.
you say that's gay, kids might think, oh, gay is, for them, it's like, oh, it's equated to, oh, that's stupid, right? It's the
Mm-hmm.
ignorance of some of the kids, right? And then, I make that a teaching moment. I'm like, wait, let's break down what gay means. And is that okay or not okay in terms of what you're taught? And there, a lot of them have said, no, it's okay. Being gay, which is a male liking a male and female liking a female. And I'm like, then don't mince those words, because words have power.
Right.
Right. And I think that with this, let me go back to this Central Park Karen thing real quick, is the fact that she was there's so many levels of wrong, of yanking the dog, causing more commotion to seem like she was more in duress, right? And more stressed out. When he, Christian Cooper is, when you see his photos, and I don't know if you've seen the other posts, like Felicia Horowitz posted something on Instagram she reposted of an interview of him bird watching in the past. And he's like the most peaceful, and you said the word, he's the most peaceful, graceful person, and Harvard graduate, right?
Right.
And here you go, this entitled white lady, I'm sorry, I'm calling what it is what it is going to act like she's in duress. An African American man is threatening me, and that was the most non-threatening thing ever. And the power of her words, if that wasn't being recorded and a cop came, I mean, I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole, but Christian Cooper could have been a George.
Well, she would definitely be believed beforehand.
Yeah.
They would have absolutely assumed
Yeah, right?
that he was in the wrong.
Yeah.
They just do that.
Yeah. So, and then on top of that, yesterday she issued a generic, I'm sorry, I'm going to call it what it is.
Yeah, that's because she got fired and her life is falling apart. Now she's like, oh, bitch, I'm sorry, woman, save those crocodiles.
Calm yourself. Okay, deep breath. Take a sip of your water. No, but she's like, oh, my whole life is turned upside down, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wait a minute. His whole life could have been turned upside down in a quick second.
Right.
And it was a PR move, one. Two, she never apologized for lying to the police, right? And there's just so many levels of wrong. Apologized to the dog that she was choking to make it seem like it was much more dramatic and like she was being attacked. But on the other side of it, I don't mean to quote Gandhi here, but I got to pull all of the ancestors and all of the wisdom into this conversation to get my namaste on, but and to just kind of process this. But Gandhi said, an eye for an eye, we all go blind, right? And so this woman has had a lot of death threats, and what was so and that's wrong to me, right?
Yeah, that's still wrong too. Yeah,
that's wrong. But I love that Christian Cooper came out and said, stop the death threats. That's not okay, and he's speaking out for her when his life could have been at risk, and that's so classy and so graceful. But that's the only way we're going to get through this. Is there's so many times where. And you have to kind of pick and choose, because if some people are just ingrained, they're just ingrained. But you have to make certain things a teachable moment when you can.
Right. Well, one thing I will say that I've noticed, even in my own personal space, I've noticed more of other Caucasian Americans who are in my circle, and not even just in my circle, but who've been silent about these things in the past. I'm starting to see more visibility of them actually speaking up, because they think wrong is wrong. Yeah. And every white person should not be judged by the actions of these fools that have the megaphone now.
Wrong has no color.
And wrong has no color.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad to see that. And I'm also glad to see that on some level, there's starting to be consequences for this behavior. Mm-hmm. Whether like this woman losing her job, these corporations are realizing, listen, our money, the bottom line is money, and that is the God in America. Yeah. And so they know there can be financial repercussions, because now with social media, it's like instantly someone like Sean King can activate 1 million people, like me being one of them. And I've been making calls, I've been signing the petitions and coaching. It's like the organization, the grassroots organization is so thick and so instant and so powerful that they have to respond. Mm-hmm. It's like he's not going around knocking on doors and sending out letters and taking 6 months to get 1,000 people. It's like I can get 1 million people on this in a day.
Yeah.
Or less. So that dynamic is different. So companies are starting to see that there will be there will be
Repercussion.
repercussions financially for stuff like this. So they're starting to step up a little bit. It's baby steps,
Yeah.
but I have to, while it's not the end result that I'd like to see, I do need to acknowledge the movement forward.
And I think that it's really important to, and I've been hyper aware of this too, that even outside of this discussion, whenever I see an article about something, right, on social media or whatever, before resharing it, it's our responsibility to look into it.
Right.
One of the things that was so amazing, I mean, that's the juxtaposition, right, of social media, because it's such a powerful tool and could be used to right wrongs, but it could wrong so many wrongs too, right?
It's creating a lot of wrong too. Exactly.
Right. So it's just about, it's a powerful tool, but how will you use that tool? Just like how will you use your voice?
Right.
So I've been just trying to like process this all, and a very interesting article. I forget the source. I don't know if it's New York Times, but it said that a lot of people, again, before they did their research, they just shared, oh, they're a Trump supporter, and this is not a political thing to me.
Right. Even one thing. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hatred is just hatred, right? And
It
so
is.
the reporter went back and looked at Central Park Karen Cooper's political stance, and she's a quote unquote liberal, right? She gave to Buttigieg's campaign, she gave to Obama's campaign. And so before we're so quick to judge and be like, you're Trump over there, F you, whatever.
Yeah. And it's so much deeper than that.
It's way deeper.
Because he's flamed the fans of division.
Yeah, I'm not saying he hasn't.
Right. Even people just automatically assume, but no, they're racist amongst us all.
Right.
I think you said something important though when you were talking about earlier about, oh God, I've just totally lost my thought.
It'll come back.
It'll come back. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did want to go back to the whole idea of it's not okay to an eye for an eye does make people go blind, and it's not okay to to have death threats and to threaten people's lives. That's so not cool, because then you become a part of the problem and you're inflaming it a lot more,
right.
Causing much more of the fear and anxiety and stress and ignorance. When you said, you had a really good point in terms of, you said you made calls, right? That's important if that's what you feel called to do.
Right. That's what I can do from California to have an effect in Minnesota right now.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Right. So that's what you can do. Or feel called to do. Some people feel called to just have conversations like this, or to, when the conversation comes up amongst kids, or you hear that vitriol in public, that you call it out, or you go and help that person.
Right.
So any sort of action is better than inaction, because if you're just sitting here and just appalled and just like, I'm praying for you,
right,
and just saying that, not really
started on that,
yeah, not doing anything about it, then you're just as wrong and not bringing up that situation. I just cannot sit here. I've been in dinner conversations where people were like, but when you see the black kid and they're running around and blah, 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 and like, it scares me. And I'm like, whoa, wait.
Well, why are you scared? You need to get to the root of that. Why does a black child running around scare you?
And I'm like, wait, do you really mean the black kid that you see running around scares you? Or do you mean that, and this is how I tried to write that situation and said, you know what, I don't care what ethnicity you are, but if late at night, if you're walking around all shady and you look like you have something hidden here, I don't care if you're black, white, Asian, whatever.
It doesn't matter. I'm getting away from you. Right. That's different.
Be scared, because that's what just the fight or flight kind of mode that you go into psychologically. But to just blanket statement that is not okay. And just like the other day, I was trying to explain to a white woman that when you walk around and you have light skin, there is a privilege to that. And she was like, I understand your point, but here's where I don't understand your point. And I'm like, no, there's no point to understand or not understand that. I know that when you walk around as a black man, okay, and when I walk around as an Asian guy, people see us differently. I'm so sorry to say, but it's the fact, right?
Yeah.
And I'm getting emotional over this, because I just see these. Nobody should be treated like that, whether you're black or whoever, and being
right.
like, like George Floyd with your leg on your neck and being choked and you're screaming, talking about I can't breathe. I mean, like that's horrific. Nobody should die like that. I don't care what color
Right.
you are. But I wanted to ask you, because there's been instances where I have walked around, like I've done a lot of motivational speaking in small towns, like outside of Ohio, and I remember just feeling scared because I'm Asian. And I don't pull out the race card. I grew up in Sacramento where if you were white, you were the one that was a minority because there's like 29 different languages spoken at my high school. But when you walk around, I wanted to ask you what, are you more scared now than you were before? I mean, I can say that just with this news, it does make me more scared and with all these attacks with Asian folk. But I know that when I went to do a speaking engagement in this rinky-dink small town in Ohio, that there was another Black man that was there, and we were brought in to talk about social media for social good, and they wanted a diverse panel. But he was like, dude, we both asked each other, we're like, were you scared walking around that town? Yeah. And we were both like, yeah. And I was like, me too. Because when I was walking around, people were looking at me like I was an exotic bird, like,
Right.
you know?
Right. And I've been used to that because I've been in white spaces all my life, and sometimes where I've been the only Black person. So I'm not necessarily afraid of it all because it's not new to me. It's just more, sensationalized. But I am very aware of how I engage and where I go and who knows where I am and what if I'm going places alone and stuff like that. So I'm not afraid, but I am very, very mindful of what's happening. So
Yeah.
that part, yeah, I'm not necessarily afraid. What I was going to say earlier, when I said I lost my thought, was when you were talking about doing due diligence of doing the research. Like we get a little snippet of something, clickbait, if you will, or we get this headline, and then suddenly we just run with it because the headline is sensationalized. But if you actually do the research in the story, but people are just too lazy. They don't want to do that. They just want to fight or they want to react.
Yeah.
Just like you were talking about the whole story of Central Park Karen being liberal, et cetera. Based on her political affiliations and her previous donations, you wouldn't expect this type of behavior of her. And then clearly that doesn't matter. Even the guy, there's a picture going around of the one of the cops, the cop who had his knee on the gentleman's neck in Minneapolis with him. And then there's another picture that looks like him in a MAGA hat. And from what I understand, the other guy is not actually him. So again, I mean, he probably has one, or he may not, I don't know. But I say that to say it's like we just look at that instant click thing that because we agree with that and we want to react to that particular thing and we want to just hold that person accountable for that particular instant. That we don't do the full due diligence. And sometimes that's painful, especially when you're not trying to, I'm not really trying to hear about your racist past and all this other crap, but I know I'm responsible for looking at the whole picture before I react. So that's what I was trying to say about earlier. But you did hit on that point where basically, you hear a snippet of something and you want that to be the whole story, but we don't actually do the due diligence, take the due diligence to actually do a deep dive into to get a more comprehensive picture.
Yeah, and you know what? I admit, like, I just could not watch the George Floyd video because just seeing the photo makes me want to tear up and makes me like angry and makes me really sad. You know what I mean? And so you got to protect yourself too from it. I don't know if you saw the Gail King clip with her co-host and her talking about the incident, and she was just like, I can't. I just got done reporting, talking about the George Floyd thing. And she was like really visibly, I've never seen her that shaken up. And as a former journalist too, like you're taught not to show your emotion, just show both sides. But when you see something like that as a human being, it's like hard not to be, it to pierce your soul. Right.
And that's why I think it's important for that stuff. As long as that crap is happening, that's why I think it's important for it to be out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it should pierce your soul unless you don't have one.
Yeah, ooh, that's really good. Yeah, and it also reminded me that this is a powerful tool. I don't know if I've ever told you this story, but I got in a car accident in New Zealand when I was there on a trip, minor. But this kid just sideswiped my car on a 2-lane highway, and then he was like, I'm sorry. And then he called the rental car company, and then he was just like, yeah, Toan just hit me, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, ooh, I learned from that incident that that I will record everything now. And it's unfortunate, but this is a powerful tool. So you got to record it. And had I recorded it, then I could have just sent it to them. However, the kid was, 16 years old. I'm a 42-year-old man with a really good driving record, and stereotypes abound don't abound for a reason, because I'm a good driver and I'm Asian. I'm just kidding. But I told the lady on the insurance, I was like, look, I have no reason to lie because I paid for insurance. And so the insurance clearly said on the car, right, that if anything happens, even if it was my fault, it's extra for that. So I was like, I have no reason to lie, and let that conscience be on whoever is a liar, because I'm not the one that's gonna be on the conscience. Anyway, so that was cleared. I didn't, I couldn't have gotten dinged for it anyway, because
so that you're right. I mean, this does give
principle. It's principle. Well, and they say character is what you do when nobody's watching. But unfortunately, nowadays you gotta push record. And I wanted to ask you, as a Black man living in Georgia, and as you've traveled the world, you are like, what do you make of all this, like, bad news after bad news after bad news of these? Can I say that it's dangerous to be a Black man in America, or is that dramatic?
Yes, but it's always been. I'm not, again, but this is not new to me. You have to understand, like, in the 51 years that I've been here, this is stuff that I've known about continuously in different forms. It's just that now there's more visibility into it, and people outside of my community who are directly affected are now getting a glimpse of it. Not even a glimpse now. Now there's just an onslaught of it. So you can all see how much it's got. So while it's disheartening, it's not surprising. Again, I don't know. I don't want to say that I'm desensitized to it, because I'm not. But I'm not surprised by it.
I wanted to ask you, have you been taught by your mom, or just through other Black folk in your life, mentors, mentees, or just people in general that have impacted you? Have you been taught how to act in public? Because I can tell you right now, I have, just as an Asian man, of my mom and dad always saying, shh, it's okay. It's okay if that insurance company wronged us. Shh, don't speak up. Don't make noise. We don't want to make a fuss. And I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm a loud AF Asian American man, you know what I mean? And I will make it be known. I will write that letter of grievance. I have no problem, speaking up. But in terms of, like, just your day to day, or when you get pulled over by a cop, did your mom ever have this conversation with you?
I don't know necessarily that I got that particular conversation about how to survive a police thing. It wasn't specific like that, but it was, you speak their language. And when I have been pulled over by a cop for nothing, which has happened on more than one occasion, I start speaking slowly and clearly with my education, etc. And it's always jarring. It's always jarring to them, because they expect, because maybe I've got on a headband, they've already got this image and perception of what they're about to encounter. So it's always. So I was just always taught how to not just to speak up and speak respectfully in all instances, not just any specific thing.
Because the gentleman that I was talking about in Ohio, and he was in charge of one of the Black Lives Matter movements in the East Coast, said he told the students at the college that I spoke to, that he says, in majority white people, and he said, the way you guys experience the world is different than the way I experience. My mom had to have a conversation with me about, when I do get pulled over, that I have to speak slowly and respectfully, and exactly like what you said. But he took it a step further and said that my mom taught me to say, officer, I am going to reach into my glove compartment to get.
Oh, yes. No sudden moves.
Right? So, that's ingrained in you, right? Yeah. And certain things, are ingrained in me in the way I carry myself too. I was at a boutique recently, and this lady was saying that she had asked me whether or not she said whether or not I knew what banana meant because appeared to be like a banana to her in San Francisco. And I was like, banana? And yellow on the outside, white on the inside, just because I switched up. So it's funny because I speak 4 different languages, is what I tell people: Cantonese, Vietnamese, English, and then Ebonics. And the slang was what I was used to, accustomed to in
Right.
Sacramento, growing up where I grew up in a lower socioeconomic class. But there's this whole thing in the hood about switching up. We call it switching up. And
Yeah,
when
we
I
call it code switching, right? Yep.
yeah, or as in the white culture, it's called code switching, and you'll
Yes.
sometimes see that come in and out. I remember when I was reporting, I
Heard
used
it
to
all
be
my
like,
life.
"Oh, they about to," and then I'm like, "Whoa, calm yourself too," and the thing is, but I've also been, somebody had also asked me once. I used a slang word, and they're black, and they're like, "Are you just trying to use that word because I'm black?" And I'm like, "No, so I use that word all the time with my friends,
Right.
So now more than ever, even with COVID and with all these like racial tensions and things and crimes happening we're talking about black men here, that we also have to step back and be mindful before we react.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
it is so
right.
easy to say you're a Trump supporter or you are this and you are that and attack back with vitriol, but that's not going to help the situation.
No, it's not. Nope.
But in terms of like mental, let's wrap up on a positive note here. Like,
Amen.
we started off talking about things that we're doing. Is there anything like kind of like that you're doing now that is even more outside of the box? We both spend time in nature, we both meditate, we both spend time with friends chatting like this. What else are you doing to just like calm the coronavirus craze, all this racial tension and divide that's
The other thing that I'm doing is exercising.
yes.
I've gotten really back into a groove with that. Bicycling. I'm rotating between one day I jog, one day I rollerblade, one day I bike. So for me, and I can kind of, that's kind of constructive for me. I can work out some of that angst and some of that anxiety through exercise. So I wouldn't say that that's out of the box. Lord knows I should have been doing that for ages. I should have been in that box. But I don't. In addition to that, I don't think that, because the other stuff is what I know centers me. Like now, maybe some people might think like, well, why would you leave Atlanta and get on a plane and come to California to sit by the ocean? One, because I can, and I'm blessed now. It was an opportunity for me to do so, but it was necessary for me. It was necessary. Even if I didn't come here, I could have gone. I would have gone to maybe the coast in Georgia or somewhere to be near water, because that soothes me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know that I'm doing anything outside of the box differently or in addition to. I just know that I've been back on the exercise wagon, and that consistency has been wonderful, along with finding these peaceful spaces out and around. So it's been
Yeah, I think for me, it's important to find the peaceful spaces inside of me, which is my breath work, my meditation, and journaling. I meditate every day. And then outside is I reach for nature and I talk to, beloved friends like you, and I do creative things. And somebody asked me this, and I guess I could speak for both of us because you and I have this conversation before. People have asked me and you, we've said this in our previous talks about like, gosh, like, how are you remaining joyful, or how are you like processing all this? And we're human beings, we have our ups and downs, but remember, it's like a marathon. Life is not just a sprint. It's not about the highs and just being featured on Forbes or being whatever or getting whatever to retweet or whatever, that the spectacle of it all.
right.
Right, but it's the constant. Like my CrossFit coach, Kelly Starrett, says, it's really about what you're doing every day. Like, are you doing those deadlifts? Are you doing those? Are you working out regularly? It's for that. It's like the marathon
Right.
for
And
when that crisis happens or that thing happens. So, you and I have experienced, suffice to say, more deaths and those types of tragedies than other people our age, or at least that
right,
I know. And so we've been able to find healthy ways to center ourselves and to
right,
do the work and
all
to
that stuff.
meditate and to do those things that really keep us centered amidst I think of it as a big tornado of news and all this vitriol and all this like life things that happen, car accidents, deaths, and injuries. And sicknesses, but you're at the core. When you find that center, it really is like a little jewel box, and all these experiences you're collecting that you learn from are like little gems, you know.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. I
I'm just
agree, I
so
agree,
grateful
I
to have
agree.
this space and this time for us. And yeah, we are lucky that we get to like luxuriate in the,
Yeah,
we
it's,
have food on the table. Thank God we have, a shelter, and we have one
and that
another.
could all change in any moment. So
Yeah,
while I do have it, I'm going to appreciate and enjoy it because
exactly.
it
And
could be
no
gone
matter what,
tomorrow.
we got each other's back.
Right,
And,
exactly.
and if you're going through whatever you're going through, like you're with this new stuff or whatever, reach out. It's okay to
Yeah,
ask for help, people.
find your tribe.
Yeah,
Exactly.
find your tribe.
Well,
Thanks for being
listen,
my tribe.
awesome
Yeah,
as
right. Great to
always.
chat with you. Enjoy the sunshine. It looks like it's peeking through right now.
Yeah, it looks
Woo!
like let me see if I can turn this around. Can you see over the building? Can you see out there?
That's that.
Wow.
You can see the water.
Yeah. So I've been drinking a lot of water,
Oh,
and now I need to go to the restroom.
okay. Okay, go pee, boo. It was good to chat with you. Mwah. Yeah, okay, we'll talk soon. Bye. Cheers.